This lightweight city e-bike is the Tenways CGO600 Pro, which now comes with an 8-speed chain drive. We really like the single-speed belt drive version we tested back in 2023, but does this version have any advantages over that model? Let's take a ride and find out. Thanks for tuning in today. My name's John, and I want to welcome you to Electric Bike Report. If you're not already familiar with our channel, we're known for our detailed e-bike reviews that are structured around 4 standardized performance tests we put every e-bike through. We'll talk about the CGO600 Pro-C's performance data shortly, but first please make sure you're subscribed to our channel so you don't miss our new reviews or our weekly news and entertainment show. Second, we really love what we do, but it does take a lot of time and effort to put videos like this together. So if this review helps you in your buying decision, please help us out in return by using the affiliate link down in the video description when you make a purchase. We do earn commissions from sales, but using that link won't add anything to the price of the bike. Moving on, let's go see what the CGO has to offer. The first thing that jumped out to me about this bike was how natural and responsive it felt to ride. It's not uncommon for city e-bikes like this to feel a lot like regular non-electric bikes, but the CGO is one of the best examples we've tested. It has a custom branded 350 watt rear hub motor that's extremely quiet, it engages quickly and smoothly, and it can change its output almost instantaneously to match your pedaling thanks to the bike's torque sensor. The result is that this bike gives you the sense that you're a lot stronger and faster than you are without making it obvious that you have a motor helping you out. The second thing to point out is this bike's drivetrain. It's the 8-speed Claris model, which is Shimano's entry-level road group set. Now, I reviewed the original model of the CGO600 Pro back in 2023, which had that single-speed belt drive, and that bike was awesome, but by its very nature, it did feel a bit limited on hills. This version of the bike gives you a 290% gear range with a lot more flexibility for hills, and I'll go into more detail on this later, but it gave us one of the best climbing results from any city bike we've reviewed in our hill test. Finally, one other thing that separates this bike from others of its kind is its aesthetic. We've reviewed all of Tenways e-bikes at the time of filming, and they all look as good as this one, with a really clean design and an ST-VZO compliant dual LED headlight integrated into the bike's head tube. The company's headquarters are located in Amsterdam, and I think it's pretty obvious that they adopted a European flair when it comes to the CGO's visual style. Both versions of the bike come in 4 color options, so ours is called Sky Blue, but there's also Avocado Green, Midnight Black, and Pebble Gray. All right, before we dive into our test sections, let's quickly run through the rest of the CGO600 Pro-C's specs and components. It's powered by a removable 36-volt, 360 watt-hour battery housed in the down tube. It features a Tektro HD M275N hydraulic disc brake system, which uses 2 piston calipers paired with 160mm rotors. The bike rides on 700C by 45mm CST XPDM Pro street tires that are puncture resistant. Both wheels have full coverage aluminum fenders. The rear fender has an integrated tail light. The front wheel has a quick release through axle, and then there's a custom saddle that's slim but also well cushioned. Up in the cockpit, there's a set of 660mm flat handlebars with locking rubber grips on an adjustable stem. Aside from the brake levers, the bike's setup is pretty simple. There's a trigger-style shifter on the right handlebar and a small color display and control panel on the left handlebar next to a bell. A few final details, the CGO600 Pro-C weighs about 45 pounds, including a 5-pound battery. It's a Class 1 e-bike with pedal assist up to 20 miles per hour and no throttle. It comes in 3 frame sizes that fit riders from 5'7" to 6'5" and above, and it has a total payload capacity of 264 pounds. This bike is not currently UL certified, but our contact advised us that the company is pursuing certification and expects to receive it in the next few months after the time of filming, so be sure to check the bike's webpage for updates. That should cover all the basics though, so let's see how this bike performed in our brake, speed, range, and hill tests. We tested the CGO600 Pro-C's hydraulic disc brakes in our brake test by pedaling up to 20 miles per hour, applying the brakes, and then measuring how far the bike traveled before stopping. Its average stopping distance after 3 of these tests was 23 feet and 4 inches, which puts it right around average for the city bike category when compared to the similar bikes we've tested. All in all, that makes sense, as this bike's weight and its brake specs are right in line with what we'd expect for a city bike. Hydraulic brakes typically have good stopping power, and 160mm rotors are usually effective enough at dispersing heat when braking, so everything generally checks out. In my personal testing, I noticed that the brakes themselves felt good, but the bike was pretty prone to skidding and squealing, so you might consider swapping to a gummier tire with better grip if you want to reduce noise and stopping distance. Based on its score though, we think this bike is spec'd appropriately, so it gets our stamp of approval for this test. The goal of our speed test was to see how fast the CGO600 Pro was in each of its 3 pedal assist settings. I took the bike out to our local shared use paths and recorded the test, so let's see what happened and we can talk about the results back here in the studio. All right, we are here for a speed test on the Tenways CGO600 Pro. Start things off with no pedal assist, and let's see, going off the bike's display, going around 11 miles per hour. With the app on my phone, that seems to be maybe more around 11 and a half, depending on the moment, maybe up towards 12, but we'll kind of bounce back and forth between those as we're going. So not putting in a ton of effort, pretty easy to pedal this bike. Let's go ahead and go up to eco mode, or I guess mode 1 is what it's called. So shift up. Very light level of power, but it feels really nice on this bike. Almost doesn't really feel like I'm, riding an e-bike. Feels very natural, very smooth, but, definitely very helpful in terms of speed. So I'm up to 13 and a half miles per hour, maybe up toward 14 at times here. Yeah, 14, okay. Let's go up to mode 2. And shift up again, give a little warning here, on your left, and let's see, looks like we're kind of landing around 16 miles per hour here. I'm actually going to shift up one more gear. Okay, yeah, that feels right. So that puts us around 17, maybe up towards 17 and a half at times. All right, and then we'll finish things off in mode 3, and I'm going to shift up at least one more gear. All right, and we are at the 20 mile per hour speed limit for the bike. This is a class 1, so that's where we top out, and yeah, everything feels good, looks good, rides nice. Let's call that our speed test. So in order to see this bike's speed profile, let's run through the numbers from the test one more time. I started off with no pedal assist at an average speed of 11.4 miles per hour, and then my averages were 13.8 miles per hour in mode 1, 17.2 miles per hour in mode 2, and 19.8 miles per hour in mode 3. If we graph that data, we see a linear pattern that shows very consistent increases in speed, which I think makes sense based on how the bike felt. It pedaled and responded very naturally in its lowest level of pedal assist, with the mid and high power settings making the ride easier and having faster acceleration. I found mode 1 to be great for general riding, and I didn't have much trouble reaching the bike's maximum speed in that setting with a bit more legwork than I applied during the test, so I spent most of my time on the bike with that lowest level of pedal assist. I bumped things up to mode 2 when I was heading back to the office after a long ride and I was feeling a little tired. For the most part, I saved the highest power level in mode 3 for climbing a couple of steep hills, but to be honest, I thought modes 1 and 2 had a good amount of power for small to average sized hills. Generally, I think the CGO600 Pro-C did a great job in this test, and I think its programming ties into what I said earlier about it being one of the best examples of a hub motor paired with a torque sensor. That said, I think the bike could definitely handle faster class 3 speeds up to 25 or 28 miles per hour, and I think a lot of folks would appreciate the ability to unlock the bike through the app to get through the morning commute a bit faster. As it is though, you'd be hard-pressed to find a better class 1 e-bike. Our range test is done twice, one using the highest level of pedal assist and another using the lowest. In both tests, we ride the bike until the battery runs out of charge, and we use Strava to track how many miles we get before the bike gives out. The CGO600 Pro-C gave us 22.9 and 63.4 miles with its 360 watt-hour battery, which looks great when compared with similar bikes we've tested. Other city bikes averaged 24.7 and 43.6 miles, so the Tenways was right about average in the test where we used mode 3, but it exceeded the average by a whopping 20 miles in the test with mode 1, which makes it flat out one of the best performing city bikes we've reviewed in this test. Now, there's no obvious reason why the bike did so well, as its motor, battery size, and weight are all fairly average, so that leads me to speculate that there's something going on under the hood that we don't know about. The motor on this version of the bike is custom, so it's possible the brand made some tweaks to improve efficiency, but again, that is speculation. Either way, we expect that most riders will be able to get multiple short trips in before needing to recharge, but those using the bike for long commutes could have their morning and evening rides covered for days when using the lowest level of pedal assist. The battery takes about 3 hours and 20 minutes to recharge with the included 3 amp fast charger, and we really liked that it was removable. Many bikes of this style have fully internal batteries that require the whole bike to be brought in for charging, so the ability to take out the battery makes the process a lot easier for those who don't have a lot of space or who simply don't want to move a whole bike around regularly. Our fourth performance test is a fan favorite. It's the hill test at a place called Hellhole Trail. This paved path has a 12% average grade, and it's 1/3 of a mile long, so it's a pretty tough climb. I'm gonna pass you over to our test rider, Justin, for a few minutes. You can see how things went with the CGO600 Pro-C, and then you can hear some of his thoughts along the way.
Okay, we're out here on the Tenways doing the pedal test. There's no throttle on this. My expectations usually aren't pretty high on this style of bikes. They usually I need to pedal a little bit more. So far though, this one feels not just smooth, but also fairly peppy. About 10 miles an hour through here. Haven't had a downshift really, 9.8. 9.7, and the downshift now. Kind of about 9.1. This was kind of like the bottom there on that first steep section. And yeah, I'm having to pedal, but it is so far more powerful than I thought it would. And that motor is whisper quiet. I'll let you listen through this section here. Yeah, I don't know if you heard that at all, because I barely do. Like, I almost have to look down and make sure the power's on from a noise standpoint. But I definitely feel it. I think this time is going to be a bit better than expectations for this style of bike. And given how whisper quiet and smooth that motor is, call me impressed. So we'll check the tape and see if my impressions are right. But overall, it feels fantastic.
That motor really is crazy quiet, right? There was a bit of a rattle in that video clip that we identified as the wire for the taillight, which tucks into a little channel in the rear fender. I don't think it's as noticeable in real life as it was there, but if it does bother you, you could try removing the wire and wrapping some duct tape around it in a couple of places before you tuck it back in place. Anyway, as I alluded to earlier, this bike did an excellent job in this test with a result that is well above average for this style of bike. Justin made the climb in 1 minute and 31 seconds with an average speed of 11.9 miles per hour, which beat the single speed CGO's result by 13 seconds and the city e-bike category average by a whopping 24 seconds. Once again, many of this bike's specs and characteristics are well within the norm for city bikes, but one thing jumped out as a potential reason for why this bike did so well. Going by this bike's controller, we expect that its motor should peak at 650 watts, which is well above the 568 watt average for the other similar bikes we've tested. That extra power likely gave the CGO a bit of a leg up, which explains the peppy feel Justin mentioned in his video clip. To be clear, city bikes like this one do require active pedaling, so you should expect to be breathing a bit heavier by the time you get to the top of a hill, but I can attest this bike makes the job easier than many similar models out there. And as I mentioned in the speed test section, the highest level of pedal assist is best for super big and steep hills, but I found the mid and low power levels to be just fine in most cases. Clearly though, there is a difference in climbing ability between this version of the bike and the single speed model, with over 10 seconds and about 1.5 miles per hour difference in speed. So if you live or ride in hillier areas, you'll likely want to consider getting the chain drive over the belt drive. There are a ton of factors that play into a bike's ride quality, including its sizing and fit, its user interface, its motor engagement, and more. Let's take the CGO600 Pro-C back out to the bike paths one more time. We'll talk about some of the basics, and then we can go a bit more in depth back here in the studio. All right, let's talk about ride quality here on the CGO600 Pro. This is a light and nimble city bike with really great handling. It's made for riders from 5'7" up to 6'5" and above, actually, with the 3 frame sizes. So right now we're on the large frame, and I'm 5'11". The sizing feels great. As far as the riding position goes, I have really nice leg extension. I have a forward lean, putting some weight on the handlebars with my arms outstretched here. And I'd say it's, sort of somewhere between aggressive and relaxed, but that is adjustable a little bit. So you get 7 inches of adjustment in your saddle height for your leg extension, and then there's an adjustable stem that allows you to change your handlebar height and your reach, which will also affect the riding position depending on your height. So if you want something a little bit more upright and relaxed, you could set that higher, and then I think it's probably fairly close to bottoming out where I have things set right now. But in any case, there is no suspension on this bike. We have a rigid fork, so you'll feel those bumps a little bit. You do get a little bit of cushioning from the tires, which we'll talk about in a sec, but the rigid fork also gives you really nice crisp handling and very predictable cornering on this bike, which just feels really great. Those tires that I mentioned are 700C by 45 millimeter, so on the wider side for this style of bike, but that makes the ride feel nice and stable. It gives you good traction on these paved surfaces, and then, like I said, does add a little bit of cushion. We also have a 350 watt rear hub motor with a torque sensor that, it feels absolutely spectacular. It feels extremely natural, very dialed in, very responsive. I've been riding really in just the lowest assist level, but if you want something makes it a little bit faster and easier to accelerate, you could bump that up. But I think it just feels very nice even in that low level. So 3 levels to choose from. I also like that simplicity, but at this point, I guess I'm kind of rambling. So let's go ahead and bounce back to the studio and we'll wrap things up. Touching back on the 3 frame sizes that are currently offered, the medium frame is meant for riders from 5'7" to 5'11". The large that we have goes from 5'11" to 6'5", and the extra large is made for riders over 6'5". Our contact at Tenways said that they're working on a smaller size for riders under 5'7". So if you find this bike appealing, but you're below that mark, hang in there. There is a version for you coming soon. Moving on, there's one small correction to what I said about the saddle's range of adjustment. There's actually 8 inches of height adjustment there instead of 7. In the comfort department, I want to acknowledge that this bike felt great to ride. City bikes aren't known for comfort, but the CGO saddle was a bit softer than most, and I really liked that the bike came with an adjustable stem, so riders can tweak the fit and riding position. I've talked a lot about the responsive feel of this bike, which really is a defining element of its ride, but I think simplicity is also a core part. I really liked the small display, which has color-coded assist levels and all your important ride data presented really nicely. I love that there were only 3 assist levels in general, and I like that the whole bike, including the cockpit, was really clean and uncluttered. This bike is super straightforward and uncomplicated, which makes it really easy to hop on and go without having to think a whole lot. The only real point of critique I have is that this bike does not have brake lights. I was really happy to see an integrated tail light here, as I knocked a few points off the single speed model I reviewed previously because it had a battery operated tail light, but I think brake light functionality is essential on a bike that's designed to ride around other cyclists and automobile traffic. Overall though, I think the CGO600's ride quality is excellent, but there's one last thing we haven't talked about yet, and that's the Tenways app. Once you download the app and pair it with your bike, you can track ride data and get turn-by-turn navigation, along with a few other cool things. We had some trouble pairing with the QR code on our bike, but I was still able to see and test most of its features. Let's go back out so I can walk you through the app, and then we'll wrap up the review. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the Tenways app. Now, it's not super complicated, it's fairly straightforward here, but it is cool, so I wanted to do a little segment on it here. Now, I do want to point out that we're cheating a little bit. The app has not wanted to connect with our test bike for some reason. We're actually waiting on a message from our contact at Tenways to help us out with that, but I did have the app paired with the the belt version of the CGO600 Pro that you can see there that we reviewed previously. So I'm able to access most of the bike's or the app's features. Just, there's some things that won't be quite up to date, but we can talk about those. So the home screen here, you have your map with GPS function. There's turn-by-turn navigation that I will walk you through here in a sec. You can see your bike, and then if you're not already connected and it does connect, then you can just hit that Bluetooth button to sync with your bike. You have a speedometer there, and then an odometer, which will update once you're paired. If you go over to the bike panel, this is actually just a summary of your ride data. So without the app paired to this bike, there's nothing showing up here, but you would get a summary of everything for the past week, the month as you go. And let's see if we look here. So yeah, you can sort by week, month, year, and all, which you can see that's way back when we reviewed the previous version of the bike. If you go over to the heart panel here, this is a support panel. So this is a direct line to Tenways. In case you run into any trouble, you can reach out directly to them. And then the far right panel is your sort of personal profile. So you have access to the Tenways website if you want. And then you can go in here, you can change your units, your language, your theme between the light and dark mode, all that sort of thing. So that's just your account. But if we bounce back to the home screen, let's tap on the speedometer here. There's a couple cool things here. So this allows the app to basically mirror the bike's display, just a larger version of it. But you see here it says auto. This will actually can actually track your ride data automatically if you set it up to do so. So this little settings panel, you can choose between either auto record mode or manual record mode. I had it set to auto there, and then you can also change your units from there. So that's very cool. That will then show your data up in that calendar that we looked at. And then you can drop that down to take a look at the map. But if we go back to the home screen, there's a search button up here. This is how you set up your navigation. So you can just sort of drag and drop the pin, or you can enter an address. Although I found that the address has to be kind of entered very specifically. So I'm just going to drop the pin down to where I know there's a grocery store down the road. And then if you hit the routes button, that sometimes will give you some options, and you can see here, so takes me on the bike path for most of the way, and then the street for a little bit, and then there's an alternate route that's a little bit more off the bike path after a certain point. So you can choose, which option you want to go with. We'll go with the shorter one.
Southwest on Virgin River Trail south for a half mile.
And then you get your turn-by-turn navigation, and again, pairs very well with the bike, I think. It looks great, very easy to use. And again, pretty straightforward, but let's go ahead and bounce back to the studio and we'll wrap things up. City e-bikes like the CGO600 Pro-C are usually some of my personal favorites, and I have to say that the belt drive version of the bike really stuck with me since I reviewed it about 2 years prior to the filming of this video. Single-speed drivetrains are difficult to nail because they have to be able to handle flats and hills, and that model was a great example of a single speed done right. I was pretty stoked to also get my hands on this 8-speed version of the bike, and it was super cool to see the differences in performance. But the core of the user experience is the same on both models, and I'm happy to recommend the CGO to anyone looking for a lightweight, natural feeling, and easy to use e-bike. The Pro-C showed a great distribution of power and speed in our speed test. It covered a ton of miles in our range test. It climbed hellhole in a remarkable time in our hill test, and its brakes stopped the bike effectively in our brake test. So really, this bike did an excellent job across the board. We challenged Tenways to include brake lights in the future for added safety, and we think it would be great to be able to unlock the bike to faster Class 3 speeds. But otherwise, this is an awesome bike that would be really well suited for a variety of riders, including commuters, traditional cyclists who might want a less strenuous experience, or anyone looking to get some exercise. We think it would also be great for fans of city bikes who live in hilly areas or anyone who plans to lift and transport their bike regularly. If you want to take a closer look at the CGO600 Pro-C, you can check out the 2 links down in the video description. One goes to our written review at electricbikereport.com, and the other leads to the bike's page on Tenways website. Again, please be sure to use that link when you make a purchase. Consider giving this video a like, hit that subscribe button, and let us know what you think of this bike down in the comments section. But thanks for taking a ride with me today. Again, I'm John with Electric Bike Report, and this was the Tenways CGO600 Pro-C.